first edition of Inside the Middle East, our program which is covering all the developments which are taking place in the Middle East region, all the developments which are tackling the region, all the hot issues and the hot topics which are happening in the Middle East region. All the crises which are occurring in the region will be tackled in our program. The program will be covering these developments as well as in-depth analysis with our dear guests which are going to discuss these issues with us either in the studio or over the phone. Also followed this program would be another program, The Voices of the Continent, on the developments in Africa, which will be taking place at 2:30 Cairo local time here on Nile TV International, and a full relaunch for all our programs will start next Sunday, the 5th of July on Nile TV International. All new programs, all deep analysis would be taking place here on Nile TV International. And we will start our program, the first edition of Inside the Middle East, with all the developments taking place in the Middle East region, and on top of which the developments in the Palestinian territories. The ongoing conflict in the Middle East triggered unprecedented civilian displacement in Gaza. Nearly the entire population of over 2 million has endured repeated forced evacuations. Similarly, in Lebanon, intense military escalations have uprooted more than 1 million people, a fifth of the country's population, following sweeping eviction orders. And that would be our topic for discussion here in the studio. And we'll start with our news, where officials in the United States and Iran will on Wednesday hold indirect technical talks on their deal aimed at ending the Middle East war. U.S. envoy Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff will not be taking part in the technical talks after they met with Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Elzieny on Tuesday. Both the U.S. and Iran had said that they would send officials for meetings in Qatar. Iraqi security forces arrested politicians and senior officials early on Sunday as part of a broader anti-corruption campaign ordered by Prime Minister Ali Elzieny. Elite counter-terrorism service units raided homes inside Baghdad's heavily fortified Green Zone in overnight operations. 47 suspects were detained, including members of the parliament and government officials. The latest operation follows a series of recent arrests of senior officials on corruption charges, which triggered further warrants executed on Sunday. Several suspects fled before security forces arrived. The UAE has said its nationals can travel to Lebanon effective on Monday, lifting a weeks-long ban in place because of the Middle East war and concerns about Iran's influence. The Foreign Ministry announced will allow the UAE citizens to travel to Lebanon starting from Monday, the 29th of June, while the ministry asked citizens to register with its Council Services platform before traveling to Lebanon. While earlier on Monday, flights resumed between Tehran and Dubai, while the Iranian state TV and other media reported for the first time since the war. However, the ban on the Emirati nationals traveling to Iran was not lifted. The problem in the Middle East, the scarcity of resources, the humanitarian situation, the displacement of millions of citizens due to the Gaza war, and the situation in southern Lebanon would be our topic for discussion with our guest in the studio, Dr. Asmaa, who will be joining us after this short break.
At least 13 people have died in Ghana's capital, Accra, after torrential rain resulted in severe flooding, according to the fire service, which has been involved in rescue efforts. The government has urged people to stay indoors or move to higher ground, as the agency warned further rain was expected with a big storm approaching from the east. Much of the water from Sunday night's downpours has begun to recede, but as the recovery operation continues, the Ghana National Fire Service GNF said the death toll could rise. Low-lying areas were particularly impacted. Videos circulating on social media show homes and vehicles submerged, while many buildings have been destroyed. Emergency response teams have been deployed to the flood-affected region, including from the police, fire service, the military and the National Disaster Management Organization. The Interior Ministry said they had been deployed to monitor the situation and to safeguard lives and property. The GNS said it had rescued more than 470 people so far. The floods also triggered a major fire at a rubber factory in the city. Some residents have also become trapped at home. The government has called for people to relocate to higher safe grounds and to avoid traveling in flooded areas. Ghana's former president noted in social media update that data indicated around 140 millimeters of rain descended on Accra, a stark increase compared to the previous year's highest single-day rainfall of 56 millimeters. The Ghana agency also warned that more rain was expected to affect parts of southern Ghana, where Accra is located, on Tuesday morning into the afternoon, raising the risk of further flooding. Accra is one of the fastest growing cities in Africa, with a population of more than 4 million, according to the World Health Organization. Flooding in Accra is exacerbated by a poor drainage system, including clogged gutters and the construction of illegal structures on waterways. In 2015, Accra experienced similar floods, which triggered an explosion at a fuel station, resulting in 150 deaths.
A very dire situation is happening to many civilians who were displaced due to the situation in the Gaza Strip as well as southern Lebanon. Those civilians are facing very critical living condition and are suffering from scarcity of all resources. To shed more light on the issue, we are very much delighted to be joined here in the studio by our dear guest, Dr. Asmaa Elzieny, our political analyst. Thank you so much, Dr. Asmaa, for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's our pleasure. Of course, we have been witnessing very severe humanitarian conditions that the people in the Gaza Strip are facing since the eruption of the Gaza war. How do you see the situation on the ground? And we have listened yesterday to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres talking about the scarcity of resources and the problems that the UNRWA is facing due to the lack of funding. How this problem could be tackled by the international community?
I see that the whole world is astonished about what is happening on the ground in Gaza and in all Palestine. But unfortunately, what is happening is not new to Israeli reactions. All of the times we are reaching to like peace settlements and agreements and deals and these type of agreements. But what's actually happening on the ground is totally different. This is Israel with its stagnation and its stubbornness, never agree on something and achieve it actually. And who is paying the very expensive bill for this are the Palestinians and the people of Gaza. Actually, the displacement is the worst thing that ever could happen to anyone. Can you imagine that someone is forced to leave all his belongings, his home, his country, his everything? You only move with very scarce things that you can carry on your back or sometimes or very small car or something like this. So the situation is so bad. I believe what could help improve the situation is the whole world sticking to what they promised the Palestinians to happen. At least they have the least of humanitarian support to improve their living conditions.
Since the eruption of war, Dr. Asmaa, we have seen the Israelis targeting civilians, the Israelis targeting hospitals, schools, children and women, which were the most of the fatalities, a very high number of fatalities from youth, from children, from women. So how the international community is reacting? We have seen complete maybe silence from the international community. No action were taken against any of the Israeli officials or the responsible on these crimes.
Actually, the international community took any action. The Israeli Prime Minister the whole case is taken to the international law court.
But nothing is applied on the ground, because even if he's considered
we are supposed to be sticking to the international law and humanitarian law, but no one is able to enforce applying this to the Israeli part. Egypt is doing her role by facilitating the passing of humanitarian aid during the Egyptian part, and it is completely blocked on the Israeli borders. The whole community, I believe that the borders are receiving senior officials from different countries. They are imagining that if they are coming to the place themselves, they are going to solve the situation, but they face the same refusal, the same refusal of the Israeli soldiers to allow them to cross. Even sometimes some of them are denied to have access to enter, just to enter.
Of course, we are always supporting our brothers in the Palestinian territories and in Gaza, and Egypt is always sending the convoy, the initiative of Zaid al-Izza every day almost to the other side through the sub-gates of the Rafah border crossing in order to try to enter the most important aid to our brothers in the Palestinian territories. How do you see such help, and what more could be done in order to try to alleviate the suffering on the Palestinian people?
Here comes the importance of the statement which President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi gave directly the next day after having the peace deal of the war between U.S. and Israel and Iran. He brought to the table again the issue of Gaza and the situation there. I believe that we need international solidarity. It is not enough on the part of Egypt or the European Union. We need all international powers to have one word against what's happening on the ground in Palestine, and especially in Gaza. And also in Lebanon, because the situation in Lebanon is being not presented. It is unprecedented. The situation is so bad. People are displaced. The number of dead and the number of injuries are a huge number.
Yes, if you talked now, Dr. Asmaa, about the situation in southern Lebanon, it's as well very alarming, and we have seen displacement for
more than 1 million.
Indeed, not only in the Gaza Strip but also in Lebanon. So how the international community should be acting towards these huge displacements by the civilians in Lebanon as well, and what are the long-term effects from such displacement?
I believe the whole world is in need to very urgent reactions. One is to make sure that the humanitarian aid is reaching those people who are displaced.
And enough, because it's not enough.
It is even not reaching. Even if reaching some places, it is never enough. As completely and literally said by UN agencies working in this. And the second thing that is parallel to this, that we need to find a method, some way to oblige the Israeli part to look at what's happening. I mean humanitarian, not military, not politically. I mean humanitarian. This is not accepted at all, to leave people in great numbers suffer like this.
How such displacement could be affecting the families, the youth, the women in both Lebanon and the Gaza Strip? How these displacements could have negative effects on the families there?
Actually, displacement equals demolishing life. no one can imagine that just in one night, on one day, 1 hour, you are forced to leave your home, your family,
belongings,
your belongings, your work, your education. It is so hard even for men who are providing for families. Imagine that there are like tens of thousands of women who are providing for their families, whether inside Gaza or in Lebanon nowadays, because the number of the deaths is great. I believe this is never a situation that never, even in other places of conflict like Southeast Asian or even in Africa, I believe that no other situation was worse than this, in numbers, I mean.
Yes, of course. How these displacements could be affecting the young generation as well? They cannot go to proper schools, they cannot have proper nutrition, they are losing the sense of belonging, the sense of safety. So how are such repercussions affecting the young generation? And I think that might be one of the weapons that the Israelis are using in order to have very negative effects on the coming generation, both in Lebanon and in the Palestinian territories.
You know, in a very important part of the studies about peace building, we are most of the time concerned about the well-being of the people who read and who watched the displacement of some people. You cannot imagine how this could affect the people who faced this dangerous situation. Sometimes when conflicts ends and war settled and situation returns to peace, I believe that sometimes, and in some situations and some conflicts, paying attention and helping the people who survived after the conflict is much more difficult than settling the situation.
Of course.
Because this unforgettable experience, sometimes I read about the survivors of very ancient, like old wars, like in Vietnam and other parts of the world, in Iraq and other parts of the world. What you read is horrible. Sometimes you cannot finish reading what they suffered and what they faced, especially women in different parts of the world. I believe that we need to pay attention to that, to the whole world, that we are losing our humanity, allowing this to happen, to be repeated in the same pattern as we never forget that this situation Palestine faced on the start of the Israeli state, the displacement of millions leaving their cities and countries to have this what is called the Israel. I believe the international community is allowing this to be, what's known in Arabic as a Nakba, when people were or forced to leave their countries. I believe the international community is allowing this to be repeated literally nowadays in Gaza.
We are witnessing almost international silence. The international community is not reacting in a positive way, is not moving in order to help the people in the Palestinian territories and in southern Lebanon as well. They are putting obstacles for the work of the international humanitarian organization. We have seen the UN Secretary General calling for aid in order to help funding the UNRWA, of course, the organization for the refugees working in Palestine. So what could be here the way out in order to save the people suffering in the Palestinian territories and in Lebanon?
To be fair enough, there are some efforts exerted by some parts. UN is trying to play a role on the ground. Egypt and some Arab countries are trying their best. And even some other Islamic countries are trying to give hand in solving the situation. But actually what we are in need to is to find a mechanism to oblige, to make all parties abide, but stick to what they agreed on. Israeli part agreed to a ceasefire and allowing of humanitarian aid, and this is never happening. The international community needs to focus on this, the mechanism, and this also is number of times confirmed by Egypt, that we need to find a mechanism to assure that what we reached is achieved.
Indeed. Dr. Asmaa Elzieny, our political analyst, thank you so much for being our guest for today. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And that would bring us to the end of this edition of Inside the Middle East. Many thanks for watching.